Good evening, guys. Welcome to the second session for SQL. Um, just going to very briefly cover what we have done up till this point. So, we have looked at the conceptual elements of database management systems. So, we've looked at what do you call a database and what do you mean by DBMS. So, essentially, those are the softwares that you use to interact with your databases, and there are two kinds of those. One is the relational kind and one is the non-relational kind. SQL primarily deals with the relational DBMS, and SQL is essentially the coding language that you use to code on that DBMS, or which you use to interact with databases. The main objective of learning SQL is that you learn to manipulate your data. Up till this point, we are working with a single data set, but very soon we are going to include multiple data sets. So how do you create queries, which is going to help you create views or extracts from existing data sets sitting on the databases. Then we looked at families of commands in DBMS or in SQL. So we looked at DDL or data definition language, DML, data manipulation language commands in great detail. So we understand the various activities that you can do using DDL and DML. We spoke briefly about DCL commands, which essentially helps you provide or revoke privileges to different users. This is more of a data admin kind of role. I mean, DCL commands are primarily used by people who are on the data admin team. So not purely an analytics subject. So we just touched upon it. For TCL, we are going to have a slightly more advanced session in coming days. So we did not spend a lot of time on this. Uh, then we also had a very quick understanding of how to work on BigQuery Studio. So BigQuery Studio is one of the offerings of Google Cloud Platform where you can use SQL extensively. It's a freeware which you can use to create your own data sets, import data sets into it, and work with them, and basically learn how to code on SQL using your BigQuery Studio. Why are we using it? Because number one, it's a freeware. Number two, there is absolutely no installation required. And number three, it gives you a good flavor of how to work on GCP platform as well. So I believe all of you must have installed, sorry, all of you already have an account on your Google Cloud Platform, which you have started to use to work on on the BigQuery Studio. So what I'm going to do is I have created a query called classwork to which I'm going to keep on adding the codes as we move on from day 1 to day 2 to day 3. And we have created a data set within our project in BigQuery Studio called classwork. In that, I have imported some data sets. Ignore few of the other data sets. The ones which we have imported from the resources provided to us by Innovit are authors, customer, employee, and order details. These four tables. These are primarily the ones we are going to use for today's session also, so that should work. Before we get started, there is a new table which I created, and we are going to use this table also for doing some aggregate functions today. I'm going to paste this for you guys to use because it should be easier for you to copy it from here and use it. So just a little bit of background on this table. This has 4 columns: ID, kiosk ID, value, and item. So think of it like a purchase history record for a store where ID is the purchase ID, kiosk ID is from which kiosk that purchase was made, value is the dollar value of that particular item, and item is the name of that item. So I have created, so it's possible that for the same purchase ID, there were multiple items which were bought. So you will see that we have inserted some 10-12 rows of information here. We are not specifying the field names when we are doing insert into, so it will have to follow the order of the columns as we have specified in the create table code. So the first item will be your ID, followed by kiosk ID, followed by value of the item, followed by the name of the item. Now you'll see that some of the elements are set as null. This has been done intentionally because we want to see that when we have nulls in data, how does SQL do aggregations on top of it. Okay, so just keep this table handy. Just create this also in your data set. So this table is available to you. Okay, so we'll move forward today with with this clause called distinct clause. So what does distinct do? Distinct is used to return only distinct values, eliminating duplicate records. So think of it as a command which helps you return unique values from a particular column. The format of this particular, the syntax for writing distinct is select distinct followed by for which column you want unique values from table name. Okay, this seems pretty simple. Let's give it a try. So we'll go back to our BigQuery. I'll give a small comment that we're going to talk about distinct now. And then let's say I want to look at the distinct department IDs from the table employee. So in my employee table, select star from classwork dot employee. If I just go and run this code, this gives me a small snapshot of the table. So what I can see is the department ID has repeating values in it. So out of the 299 rows, I can see that department ID is definitely repeating in the raw table. Now, if I want to find only the unique entries in department ID, I will use distinct clause here. So I will say select distinct followed by column name for which I want the distinct records. So department ID from classwork dot employee. All right. So when I run this command, this gives me the list of 10 unique department IDs which are present in this table. So if you see, it starts from 1, goes up to 10. Okay. So what we know now is that there are 10 unique entries for the field department ID in this particular table. All right. Now, what if I want to look at the unique combination between department ID and city? What I mean by that is, if I look at this particular table again, I can see that department ID is also repeating and city is also repeating. So if I want to look at the unique combination between department ID and city, I can still use distinct. So if I write select distinct followed by department ID, comma, the next column, city from classwork.employee. Okay. So I'm telling BigQuery that give me the unique entries of department ID and city. So if I mention more than one column after distinct, it is going to give me the unique combination of these two fields. Let's see how it is looking like first, so that you will understand what's happening. So how does the output look like? So the department ID is unique here, but the city is repeating. So for the first 10 entries, I see the department ID going from 1 to 10 and city taking the value Chicago. Then the 11th entry is again starting with the department ID 1 for the city Houston, and that goes from 1 to 10. Similarly for New York and Los Angeles. So what did it do? It created kind of a Cartesian product between the unique entries of department ID and city. Now, because if so think of, if I want to call it a Cartesian product, I know that department ID has 10 unique entries and city has 4 unique entries. It has Chicago, Houston, New York, and Los Angeles. So if I want to find a unique combination between department ID and city, it would be 10 unique entries for department ID multiplied by 4 unique entries for city. So there would be 40 combinations which form. So if you see, there is exactly 40 observations which this query is throwing at me. Now you might look at it and say that, but city is still repeating here. That will happen because when you specify multiple fields with the column, with the command distinct, it is going to create first a combination between these two fields, these two columns. And each entry is going to be a unique combination. So this combination where department ID is 1 and city is Chicago will never repeat anywhere else in this query's output. So that is what we are taking as unique over here. All right. Now, one more thing. Right now, this is sorted by department ID, city followed by department ID. So first it is sorting the data by city followed by department ID. If I want to do it in the other way around, I want the output to be first sorted by department ID, then by city. So I will copy this code, Control C. So we know from our previous class that in order to sort, we have to use the logic order by. Okay. So I will say order by department ID followed by city. Okay. Let's say run. So see, it is now first sorting it by department ID followed by city. There is another way by which you can specify order by. Right now, I had to write the names of each of these columns. Now, SQL is very smart. It actually implicitly gives an alias to each of the columns in the order in which you're specifying it. So in this query, department ID is my first column. City is my second column. So instead of writing order by department ID, comma city, I can also say order by column 1 specified in query followed by column 2 in the query. So instead of writing the full names of these columns, I am using the alias of the order. So in the query, if department ID is my first column, then if I write order by 1, that means I wanted to sort the output first by the first column in the query, which is department ID, followed by the second column. If I run this, you will again get the same output. So this just makes it easier for me to code. I don't have to keep writing the full names of each of the columns. I can use these 1, 2 aliases. So if you have 3 columns, then implicitly SQL understands that the first column you specify will take value 1, second 2, third column takes value 3. So you can use this 1, 2 thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, how many so ever columns you specify whenever you are coding. Okay. So we understand distinct now. Distinct gives me the unique entries for a particular column whenever we use it. And if we use it for multiple columns together, it gives me the unique combination of those columns. Okay. Let's go back. We looked at limit in the last class. So limit will give me the first 10 entries by these fields. So it basically puts a cutoff on the number of entries that are going to get displayed. Okay. Group by and having will do in a bit. First, we are going to look at between. Okay. So between operator, so these are today in the next session, I mean in the next half hour of the session, we are going to primarily talk about different elements that you can use with your where clause. So up till now, we have looked at a where clause where we have used a single field. So on a single field, we are putting a condition using, let's say, greater than, less than, equal to, those kind of comparison operators. Now we are going to essentially focus on other kinds of operators which help us make that filtering criteria more sophisticated. So between operator is used to filter results within a certain range. So it can only be used with numeric fields. The range is inclusive, meaning it includes the starts and end value. So for example, here we say select star from products where price between 10 and 20. So I'm going to put a filter on price where it takes value starting from 10 and going up to 20, including both the values. Okay. Let's create one on the employee table to see if it works or not. So I'm going to call this between select star from classwork dot employee where there is one numeric field in this, which is salary between 100,000 and 200,000. So remember, the lower limit has to be the first element to be specified. The upper limit has to be the second element to be specified. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did I put an extra here? Okay. Yes. Let's see if this works. Let's also do order by here so that just by looking at the field, we will be able to see whether it has correctly picked all the values or not. So when I run this query, look at the salary field. The first and because we've also sorted it, if I look at the first and the last value, I will be able to make out if it has correctly filtered based on salary or not. So here I told it to pick up all the entries between where salary takes a value between 100K and 200K. So see, the starting value is very close to 100K. It cannot exactly pick 100K because there were no entries for 100K. The first entry, which is greater than 100K, is this value. So it picked that. And then it went up already on last page. And the last entry that it is picking is this, because this is the largest value that it has between 100K and 200K. Okay, this was pretty simple. Now you can also code this using comparison operators, greater than, less than sign. How will you code it? Select star from classwork dot employee where salary greater than equal to 100K and I'm using and here, although we will pick it up in a bit. Salary less than equal to 200K. So here I'm telling SQL that put this filter on the table employee. So there are two conditions here. First condition, salary greater than 100K. And second condition, salary less than equal to 200K. So exactly this thing. I'm just breaking it up into condition 1 and condition 2. So both the conditions have to be satisfied here. So the salary has to be greater than 100K and it has to be less than equal to 200K. So if I run this, it should exactly give me 67 entries. It is giving me 67 entries. I've not sorted it by salary, which is why the lowest value, I mean, it's not sorted in the salary by salary, but you can do that as well. Now we'll also use the date field to do some filtering. So let's say I want to filter out those employees who were hired in the year 2015. Okay, so hired in the year 2015 means their hire date has to be between 1st January 2015 to 31st December 2015. Let's write the query out. Select star from classwork dot employee, where we will use between here, where hire date between, the way you specify the date is, see, the format of the date here is YYYY hyphen MM hyphen DD. So we have to specify it in the same order within these quotes. Okay. So between lower limit, so lower limit would be 1st January 2015. So I say 2015 01 01, and upper limit is 31st December 2015. So 2015 12/31. Let's also order it by hire date, so we can see if it has correctly, if it correctly does it. So we are using the between clause and specifying the lower limit and upper limit for hire date. And because between is an inclusive clause, so both the lower limit and upper limit will be included in the filter criteria. And the way you specify a date in a where condition or anywhere that you want to specify it in your code in SQL, you have to put it in quotes. In some RDBMS, you also have to write D after that. That's a small syntax change. So I think in MySQL, when you write it, no, in MySQL, you don't have to write D, but in Oracle SQL, after this date, you will have to write a small D also. But those are small changes that you will have to adapt to based on whichever RDBMS you're using. In BigQuery Studio, you specify it in this format. Run it. See, it starts from 9th January 2015 and goes up to 20th December 2015. Okay. So the idea of showing this was so you understand that how do you specify a date in SQL. Okay. So now we understand another operator, which is between operator. The third operator that we want to talk about today is in operator. So in operator helps you filter your data. If let's say you want to filter your data based on a categorical field. So let's say you want to filter it based on city and you want to filter it for multiple cities. Up till this point, we have filtered the data for one city at a time. So let's say if you want to filter the data for city Chicago, so you say where city is equal to Chicago. But let's say you want to filter your data for city Chicago as well as city Los Angeles. So then you can use in. How do you write it? Select star from classwork dot employee where city in. Then within brackets, you can specify as many values that you want city to take. So we want for Chicago, comma, the second value is Los Angeles. So here I'm telling SQL that filter the data wherever city takes the value Chicago or it takes the value Los Angeles. So either it takes this value 1 or takes value 2. Let's run this query. See, it has filtered the data for Chicago. And then if you go on to, let's say, another page, you will see it will filter first all entries which take the value Chicago or Los Angeles. So if you want to filter based on one categorical field, you want to filter for multiple values, then you will use in. Inside these brackets, you can specify as many values as you want city to take. Okay. Any questions till this point? Okay. All right. Now, let me see what other is there. Like, okay. Now we are going to talk about logical operators to combine multiple conditions. So up till this point, whatever conditions we have put on a single field. So whenever we are using where clause, we are saying that filter data where column 1 takes value x1 or column 2 takes value x2. We have looked at how do we specify range for numeric values as well. So greater than, less than sign we used between operator for that. We used in to filter the data if based on one categorical field if it takes multiple values. But what if I want to create a filter based on two separate columns taking separate values? So there are three operators which we can use: and, or, and not. Let me quickly put that down for you. So, sorry. All right. So, and operator. So, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to talk about only two conditions at a time. But remember that you can combine n number of conditions using and clause. Okay. So, let's say condition 1 and condition 2. Okay. So, for example, let's say condition 1 is where salary is greater than 10,000 and condition 2 is where city is equal to Houston. Okay. Now, whenever I'm connecting both of these conditions using and, then what happens in the final output? So, if condition 1 is true and condition 2 is true, only then my final output will be true. If my condition 1 is true, condition 2 is false, if I'm connecting them using and, then the final output would be false. Similarly, if my condition 1 is false, condition 2 is true, either or, then also the output would be false. And if both of them are false, then definitely my final output is false. Now, what is this final output? It means that I'm going to use these, I'm going to connect these two using and I'm going to use them in a filter. So when I do that, only when, so this is going to filter rows from your data. So only for those rows where both of these conditions are true, will they appear in my final output if I'm connecting them by and. If I have certain rows where either of these conditions are satisfied, for example, let's say for a particular row, my salary is 15,000, but my city is New York. So in that case, it is this combination. So that row will not appear in my final output. Similarly, if I have if my city is Houston for a particular row, but my salary is, let's say, 5,000. So my first condition is not satisfied. So that entry will not appear in my final output. And of course, if both of them are not true, then it will never appear in my final output. So, and whenever I'm connecting two conditions using and I'm filtering it based on that, only those rows which satisfy both conditions will appear in my final output. Okay. For or, if I am doing the same thing using or, if the first condition is true, second condition is true, then that row will appear. If my first condition is true, second condition is false, then also it will appear. If my first condition is false, second condition is true, then also it will appear. it will only be filtered out if both conditions are not satisfied. So or essentially means either this condition is satisfied or this condition is satisfied. So either so for those rows where either my salary is greater than 10,000 or city is Houston, all of those rows will appear in my final output. Only if my salary is also less than 10,000 and city is also not Houston, only those rows will get filtered out. Okay. And not always works with a single condition. So not means that when I say not, that means the reverse of that is getting checked. Let me code it and show. Not showing it is a little off. So whenever this condition is satisfied, the opposite of that happens. Now let's create some small codes for you to understand this. So for this condition, to evaluate and I'm going to use the same condition. So we'll go back here. I'm going to call it and say select star from classwork dot employee where salary greater than 10,000 and city is equal to Houston. Okay. Now if I run this query, there are 69 rows. Let me just filter it out for all 100 so I can see all of them in one go. So see, for all rows, both conditions are satisfied. That is, salary is also greater than 10,000 and city is always Houston. So you will find no rows where either of these conditions are not satisfied because we have connected them using an AND criteria. We did something similar here in this case. So here we basically split up this condition using AND. So we said that salary is greater than 100K and salary is also less than 200K. That means we are setting a range. Now, both the conditions have to be satisfied for for the filter to be for salary values between 100K and 200K. So I am connecting them using AND. Okay. Let's look at OR. So in OR, let me use a different criteria now. So select star from classwork dot employee where let's say city is equal to New York or let's say department ID is equal to 10. Okay. Hold on, I'll just this is visible. So here I'm saying that filter all those records where either city takes the value New York or where did that 10 go? Okay. I think I deleted it. Is equal to 10. Or the department ID takes a value 10. Let's see if that happens or not. So there are 111 rows. Let me filter out all 200. So see, either of these conditions are going to be satisfied. That is, either department ID will take value 10 or city is New York. So first initial entries you see, the second condition is satisfied. For starting from here, the first criteria is satisfied. Okay. And then you have some entries where both criteria is satisfied. Row number 99 to this one, 102. Okay. Now, we will use not when I want to use the opposite of its condition. So let's say I want to remove those entries or filter out those entries where city is equal to New York. So select star from classwork dot employee where the way you write not is not city is equal to New York. So I'm telling SQL that give me those records where this condition is not satisfied. So the condition, the not of it is I mean, when I say not, that means this condition is not satisfied. That means the opposite or the complement of this condition is satisfied. What is the complement of this condition? City being taking values other than New York. Let's see. See. All the entries will have values apart from New York. That I cannot see here. So what I will do here is, if I just want to see if the condition is satisfied or not, I want to see the distinct values of city that this query takes. So I will say select distinct city from table where not of this condition. So then this will essentially give me the unique records for city based on this condition. So let's see what kind of output we get for this. See, you got all the other three cities apart from New York. So here I combined this logical operator with a distinct clause. Okay. So we have looked at very simple examples right now for and, or, and not. Let's explore this a little more in detail. So I have created some questions for you. Okay. I will try to do all of them. If we don't find time to do all of them, I will give them as assignments to you. You can give them a try. And in next class, if you have any doubts, we can have a look at them. All right. These examples are just like classwork as examples so that you spend more time with the logic. And so it's clear for you. Okay. Find entries in this table, employee table, which satisfy all of these conditions. The three conditions are set here. So when I say satisfy all the conditions, that means I will have to connect them using and. So here we have three conditions. City Chicago, salary greater than 150K, department ID is equal to 5. And in order to solve this, we have to use and because we want to satisfy all the conditions. So let's code it out and see. Select star from classwork dot employee where city is equal to Chicago and salary greater than 150K and department ID is equal to 5. So now I'm using three separate conditions here and connecting them using and. Let's also sort them by order by city, department ID, salary. So here, because I'm saying star, so I cannot use that 1, 2, 3 in order by. If I had only specified certain column names here, then I can use order by 1, 2, 3 and so on. Okay. Run. Oh, there is no data to display. That means there are no such entries. Let me tweak this a bit. I actually did not try out all of these questions myself. So, all right, let's see. See, okay, so there are only 5 entries which satisfy all of these conditions. The initial condition, there were no entries which satisfied it because if you see for these 5 entries also the salary is less than 150K, right? So all 3 conditions are satisfied. So city always takes value Chicago, salary always greater than 15K, and department ID is always 5. So the intersection or the common elements based on all 3 conditions have been filtered out. Okay. What's the next question? In next question, it is said that find distinct department ID. So now we will not use select star. we will use distinct department ID, where first condition says either city is New York or Chicago. Second condition says salary is less than 550,000. Okay. So here we can use the or we can use in. So we will code it in both ways. So condition A and condition B have to be both satisfied here. Okay, because it says where A and B is satisfied. So this is my first condition now, and this is my second condition. First condition also I will break it up into two using or. Okay, let's code it up. So let us see.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry. One thing. Go back to the screen. Previous query running. The place where you are running. Yeah.
Okay,
So here you mentioned like order by city. That's fine. Why you mentioned like dot department? I oh sorry.
comma.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Got it. You ordered based on these three
All
details.
three, yes, all three.
Got it.
So basically, I did that because I was hoping that there are going to be more entries, so I don't have to do the scrolling and everything. It will be clearly visible. But here I'm first saying that order it first by city, followed by department ID, followed by salary.
Got it. I thought it is a dot. Now I
No, no, no,
saw
no,
it is.
no. Dot will give you an error here. You
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
put a dot
That's the
here.
reason.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so the next question is that find distinct department ID where either city is New York or Chicago and salary greater than 50,000. Okay, so I will say select. One second, I'm just going to put enter so we can see where I'm coding. Department ID from class work dot employee. Now the criteria where, so the first criteria is where city is New York or Chicago. So I will say city is equal to New York or city is equal to Chicago. I can write it like this. And the second criteria is also connected by and. That is a single criteria. So salary less than 50,000. So here I'm saying that I'm going to order this by, I'm going to also, okay, I can't put multiple things here. Okay. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'm saying that first I'm going to write this as star so that the query is clear. So here I'm trying to tell SQL that either both of these conditions have to be satisfied. This is condition one, this is condition two. So my condition two is simple. It says that salary is less than 50,000. Condition one is also a combination of two conditions where I'm saying that city takes either value New York or it takes value Chicago. Now this will be I want this to be evaluated as a single composite condition. So that is why I've put that in brackets. So I'm telling SQL that look at the output of this through and then combine it with the output of this and then give me the final output. Okay. I put star here first so that we can see how the output looks like and then I'll use distinct department ID. See. So salary will always, based on this, salary should always be less than 50,000. Let's see. Yes, see, salary is always less than 50,000. And based on first condition, my city will either take value New York or Chicago. So see, takes Chicago or New York. Okay. Now for our question, we have to find distinct department ID. If I just scroll through it, I can see that, I think, let's see what we get. So all 10 department IDs satisfy these conditions. So that's why we get the output. So here we learned a new thing that if I want to use multiple conditions together and I want to combine two conditions together and treat the output of that as a single one, then I have to put that in brackets. Okay. Now, instead of using or here, I could have used in also. So if I just want to show this using the in operator, I could just have written in New York because it's trying to filter out for the same column. I could also have written this like this. Then also it would have done the same thing. I did not close this. Right. Okay. So this is the equivalent of this. What I did, instead of breaking this up using or, now we are using in, and because we know in operator, we can specify multiple values for the same categorical field. Okay. All right. Let's look at the third question. This third question, I'll paste it for you guys and you can give it a try. And let me know if you face any challenges. Okay, I'll just quickly tell you what we need to do. Again, here we need to find the distinct department ID where either of A or B is true. So either condition A is true or condition B is true. So what is my condition A? Condition A says salary lies between 10,000, 100,000, yeah, it is 10,000 and 20,000. Okay. So this we can use a between. And there's a second part of condition 1. So department ID is equal to 10. So this is my entire condition 1. So you'll have to first create the first part of condition 1, second part of condition 1, connect them using and put them in bracket. Second condition, which is condition B, any city other than Chicago. So you can use the not operator here. So that becomes your second condition. And the question says either of A or B is true. So you will connect this entire thing and this entire thing using OR. Give it a try. First you select star and see if all of the conditions are correctly getting picked or not. And then use the distinct department ID. Give it a try. I'll give you the solution for this in the next class. All right. So this was about the different kinds of logical operators that we can use. Now the last operator, is this the last operator? Hold on. Yes, this is the last operator. Like. Sorry. So up till this point, we have always looked at exact matches for categorical fields. That means we always have to specify that city is equal to New York, city is equal to Chicago, in the exact same case in which it appears within those codes. Now, what if I have some entries that I want to pick based on patterns? So if I want to do a pattern-based match, I will have to use a like operator and we'll have to use it with wildcards. So a like operator is used to search for a specified pattern in a column. Wildcards are often used with like operators. So there are two wildcards which we'll talk about. The percent one and the hyphen one. This is not hyphen, this is underscore. Sorry, this is underscore. Now let's understand how can we use this percent sign. Now remember, this is case sensitive. The behavior of like operator with respect to case sensitivity depends on database system and its collation settings. Some databases offer case insensitive versions of the like operator. Okay. This I will explain in the very end. Ignore this note for now. Let's understand the use of this percent wildcard. So for this, I'm going to use the other table, which is the customer table. Now remember, this customer table I have imported it. Okay, this table I did not create. Oh no, did I create this table? Okay. I'm talking about this customer table then. I did not import it in this, but it has these 4 fields. This is one of the tables which is provided as a resource to you. So we're going to use this table for our work. Okay. Select star from import dot customers. I'll just show you the table once so you understand how it looks like. So there are about 1,000 entries in this. It has 4 fields: ID, name, email, and phone number. Okay. Now, I'm going to use a like operator now and try to filter based on the name. Okay. Now, uh, select star from import dot customers. It just overwrote it. Where name, like, within quotes, let's say I want to pick all of those names which start with the letter CHAR. Okay. So CHAR%. When I write it like this within quotes, when I say CHAR followed by percent, this means that I want to filter out all of those entries where name starts with CHAR and it can be followed by 1 0 or more than 0 string entries after that. That means if I go back to my classwork question, okay, let me write it here. Okay, so when I say CHAR percentage, that means I want all of those entries which start with CHAR and then they can have some thing written after it. That means, for example, it can mean Charlie, it can mean Charles, it can also mean Char. So it means that these name will always start with CHAR. It can be followed by some letters after it, or it can be followed by nothing also. So these 3 will correctly get filtered using this. But let's say I have an entry which says E Charlie. Let's say this is the name. This will not get filtered because this does not start with CHAR. It starts with P. So when I say CHAR%, the only thing which I wanted to filter is those entries which start with CHAR. Okay. Let's see if it is doing that or not. Let's go back to the query. Let's run it. See, it has filtered out only those entries which start with the letter CHAR, and note that it is also using the case. Okay, let's look at one more example. What if I want to filter out those entries which maybe let's say end with CHAR. So I'm going to copy this thing. So I want to pick up those entries which end with CHAR. I'm going to write it like this. So this means that there can be 0 or greater than 0 letters before CHAR, but the name will always have to end with CHAR. Let's see if there are such entries. There are no such entries, but this is what it means. Now, what if I use percentage on both sides? Now, let me use a small case. So, I am telling SQL here that give me all those entries which have this combination of letters somewhere in between. It can be the first, it can be the last, it can be somewhere in between also. The only thing that I want is it should appear in this order. It cannot be CH followed by some letter followed by AR. It has to be CHAR. It should appear together like I have coded it. And there can be some letters before it and there can be some letters after it also. And remember the case. This is small case. Now see, this Richard is getting specific coming out here because CHR appears in the small case in somewhere in between. It will appear for all of these cases. See. So wherever this CHAR in small appears together anywhere in the name, at the beginning of the name, somewhere in the first name, somewhere in the last name, all of those will get filtered out. So this percentage sign means that there can be 0 or more than 0 letters before this as well as after this. Let's also use one with capital CHAR, proper case CHAR. So instead of writing it as small, let's write it as the large case. C. Now here, what happened? Now here, all of those entries which we saw earlier, Richard and Zachary, those will not appear because the case is different here. Here I want to say that there can be some letters before CHAR as well as after CHAR. The only thing is CHAR should appear together and C should be capital. So in the first two cases, CHAR is in capital as well as it appears together. And there are some letters after CHAR and there is 0 letters before CHAR. That means both of these will get filtered. Same applies for the fourth entry. For the third entry, see there are some letters which appear before these CHAR as well as something which appears after CHAR. The only thing is C has to be in capital and CHAR has to appear together. Now, what if I want to pull out all the entries which have the letter CH and AR? So, if I write it like this, let me put it in small case and then another percent in between. Then what will happen? Here in this case, I am telling it that the letters CH will appear together and the letters AR will appear together. There can be some letters before CH, between CH and AR, as well as after AR. So all combinations. Let's run it and see. Okay, this one is already there. Alexander Richardson, this was also there. See, look at this case. Michelle Stewart. So CH followed by so many letters, then AR followed by some letters. Similarly, this case, Rachel Barnes. CHAR. Okay. So see, I use 3 percentage sign and each of them have a specific importance in identifying the pattern. Okay. Now, what 2 takeaways from this? Now we understand that percentage wildcard helps us to filter out data. To identify patterns. Percentage means that there can be 0 or more than 0 letters present in that position. If I don't specify a percentage at the beginning, that means it has to start with these letters. If I don't specify a percentage after the letters, that means it has to end with these letters. The third thing which you should note in this DBMS, BigQuery Studio, is that this is case sensitive. So which is why the output for this and this differed. Because here CHAR is in small and this here it's in proper case. Now, this does not apply to all DBMS. For example, in MySQL, you can select between your tool being case sensitive versus case insensitive. I think by default, it is case insensitive. That means the output for this and this would be same in MySQL by default. Only if I go in the settings and change it and I say that treat different cases differently, only then it treats it like it happens here in BigQuery Studio. So remember that there will be small differences when you shift from one tool to another. This is exactly what this note means. It depends on its collation settings. But in BigQuery Studio, it is always case sensitive. Remember that. Okay, there is one more wildcard, which is underscore. So underscore represents a single character. Percentage represents 0 or more characters. Underscore represents always a single character, always one character. I'll give you one small example for this. So let's say select distinct city from classwork dot employee where city like, and these wildcards always work with like. So if you give this as equal to here, it will give you 0 output. I'll just show that also. So let's say I want to filter out those cities which have O as the second letter. So I'm saying that there is some entry before O. O is my second letter, and then there can be some letters after O in the name city. Let's see. So see, it filtered out Houston and Los Angeles. The other two are New York and Chicago. In both of those cases, O is not the second letter. Okay. Now, underscore is more restrictive than percentage, which is why it's not as widely used as percentage. Percentage kind of serves most of your, like 99% of your use cases, percentage solves. So this is just so that you know how to use it. Now, just to show you, if I write this code here and instead of writing like, I say equal to, I think it will give me 0 or it will give me an error, either of the two here. There is no data to display because although it will run the query, but it will try to pick the exact match for this. So it will exactly try to pick underscore O percentage, and there is no such setting. So remember, whenever you use pattern match, you have to use like operator, and with that you have to use some wildcard. Okay. Let's look at some examples. I have two examples for you here. Question 4. Find the employees where last name starts with MO. Okay, so the last name in the table employees have to start with MO. So when I'm saying last name, that means it will appear somewhere within the name because the first name and last name are combined here. So in that case, we have to use percentage on both sides. It says starts. That means that there will be some letters after MO also. And of course, there's going to be a first name before these letters. So let's code it up and see. Select star from classwork dot employee where was it name percent MO percent. So this means that MO will appear somewhere within the name. Because I want it to be the last name and I don't want MO to appear anywhere else in the name, I will also put a small space. So this will tell me that I'm trying to look for these combination of letters. So see, space is also a letter here because it is in quotes. So it says that this kind of a pattern, space followed by M in capital and O is what I'm looking for, which is exactly how the last name starting with MO would look like. So let's run this. See, all those cases where the last name starts with MO gets filtered out. Okay, let's look at another question. Find employees whose names start with Joe. So the name starts with Joe and salary is greater than 50K. How many such employees exist? What is their department ID? Okay. So first, they want us to find the number of, they want us to find those records from classwork.employee where name starts with Joe. So like starts with Joe, so I will write JO first, followed by percentage, and salary greater than 50K. Was it greater than? Yes. Okay. Let's see. Yes, see there are 9 entries. So see, all of these names are starting with JO and the salaries are greater than 50,000. Okay. So here we can see that there are 9 such employees. So the first question asks how many such employees are there. Second is what is their department ID. So to find the department ID, we will write select distinct department ID. These are the 5 department IDs for which both of these conditions are satisfied. Okay. All right. Any questions on all the operators that we've looked at till this point? Okay. One thing that I just want to tell you is that in this class, we are going to, this is how we are going to work on things. We are going to first look at very simple examples which only explain that concept, and then we'll plug that concept along with other concepts that we have learned before. So here we looked at, right now we were trying to understand the concept of wildcard pattern matches. So first we looked at pattern matches using these examples. And once it was clear to us how they are getting used, we combined them with AND operator as well as distinct operator. Okay. So this is how we are going to use it. So when I started learning SQL, how I worked on it was I break up the problem into smaller parts and I try to answer one part at a time. And then I see how all of those parts are connected. So in this question, for example, the one we just solved, first part is find employees. That means it is going to be select star. Second is name starts with Joe. That means it's a pattern match. So I will use like. And second condition is salary greater than 50K. So this is part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 2 and part 3 are connected using AND. So that solves this entire thing for me. Last part, what is the department ID? So now I don't care about select star. I want to find their distinct department ID. So I will still keep these conditions, and instead of using select star, I will use this. So I broke up the entire thing into smaller parts and then I joined them together. So that's my approach. I have a bottoms up approach. Whichever approach you use, make sure that you follow a logical chronology. Either you start at the very smallest item and then you build up, or you start at the top and you go to the bottom. Don't work on it in a haphazard manner, because then your logic might have some fallacies. Okay, small bit of yarn there. Okay, now we are going to look at all of this while we looked at we're going to look at aggregate functions now. So at all of this time, we looked at only select star or select distinct entries for columns. But a big part of SQL is also summarization. The counterpart of that in, let's say in Tableau, essentially what you do is summarization. In Excel, if you want to summarize, you use a pivot table. So SQL, 90% of the work is summarizing the data. No one wants to look at select star. Select star is only used when you want to create an extract. But SQL is a descriptive analytics tool. It is used to give you descriptive summary based on the table. or the extracts. So aggregate functions is a big part of it. So what are aggregate functions? Aggregate functions are functions which are used to perform calculations and give you a single value. Now remember, there are two kinds of functions in SQL. In most tools, one is a row-based function and one is aggregate function. Row-based functions are which work on each row at a time. For example, let's say if you want to round your salary to a round figure, rounded to the nearest unit number, nearest integer. So that in that case, it acts on each row and creates one output. But if you want to count the total number of records, or you want to find the sum of a particular column, average, minimum, maximum, median, percentile, those work on multiple rows together and gives you a single output. So those are called aggregate functions. Okay. And essentially, summarization is going to be using aggregate functions. Group by, we will not talk about today. I will introduce the concept of how do you create functions in SQL, and then we will talk about group by after that. Maybe in today's class or maybe not. Maybe not. Okay. All right. Let's look at these 4 or 5 functions. Keep bear in mind that there are more aggregate functions which we will talk about in later classes. The reason for introducing aggregate functions here is that we can talk about group by, having, and those things as well. And once you get introduced with more complex functions, we will use those with group by. So these aggregate functions are just so you understand how do you do summarization in SQL. All right. So first is, of course, count. Let's go back to our Google Studio. So I'm going to call this aggregate functions. So let's say I am going to work with that customer table. Okay, so select count star from import dot. This is the same customers table which has been provided as a resource. So I'm using that. So when I say select count star, it counts all the records, all records within that particular table and gives me an output on that. Okay. Now see, look at the syntax of this. I wrote select count in brackets. I have to specify, I can specify a column name or I can simply specify star. When I say star, that means count all the records which exist in this table from table name. Now I did not give an alias to the output of this, which is why you see it is taking some random name called FO underscore. This is a automatically tool generated alias, but it's not the best way to create fields and not give them names, because right now I'm writing a single count function. Once you start using SQL, you will combine multiple things. So it's always useful to give them certain names. So I'm going to name them number of records. Run it. To see num records. Okay. Now, what if I want to count a particular field? Okay. So let's say I want to count the number of IDs as ID count from import dot customers. So this is going to look at the column ID and count all the non-missing entries in the column ID. Okay. It's important for you to understand that this is non-missing. Now, if I just look at both of these together, so if I just copy this as well and I paste it here. So here I'm creating two counts. One, I'm counting all the records in the table. Second, I'm counting all the non-missing entries in the column ID. And I'm separating them using a comma. Because these are going to be two separate columns. So both output is 1000. So looking at this, what I can make out is the total number of records in the table is 1000, as well as the total number of non-missing entries in the column ID is also 1000. Alternatively speaking, ID has no missing information in the table, which is why it is exactly similar to the total number of records. Okay. Now, what if there is some missing in my data? So for example, if I show you that table which we created, select star from classwork.records. This table, I pasted the code for this. So this table has some missings in value as well as items. So here, if I say select count star as number of records and count items, did I write it wrong? Yes. Items as count items from classwork.records. This is going to differ, the output of both of them. See, the total number of records in the table is 10, but we know when we looked at the table, we saw that certain items, certain rows in the column items had missing or null. So this only counted those items which had non-missing data. If you go back to the table, you will see that there were 9 entries where items column took some value. So there's this one entry where it took null, and that's it. So that is why this count items takes a value 9. So remember, your aggregate functions, the ones that we're talking about today, will always aggregate non-missing data. If anything is missing, it will ignore it. Not give you an error, but ignore it. Okay. Now, now if we look at this table, what if I want to find the distinct count of ID in this table? So I can combine count and distinct. I can say select count ID as ID count, count distinct ID as distinct ID count from classwork.records. So the first is going to count all the ID, all the non-missing entries for ID, this count function. The second count function is going to find the count of unique IDs. So distinct ID is first going to create all the unique IDs. Then this count function, which is wrapped around that distinct thing, is going to count the number of distinct entries within the column ID. So if I see the data, I can see that there are 1, 2, 3 distinct IDs. So count ID, because there are no missing in ID column, so it will take a value of the total number of records, and count distinct should take a value 3. Let's see if that's happening. See, the total count, ID count, which takes the number of non-missing ID count, is 10. And the distinct IDs, there were 3 distinct IDs. So the count on top of distinct ID gives you a value 3. Okay. Now, let's look at few other aggregate functions which we will use. We'll go back to our employees table now because it has some nice values. So select, let's say, sum of salary as salary sum. average of salary as average salary from classwork dot employees what happened classwork dot employee oh employee sorry. So see, this is taking the total, it's taking all the records within this table employee, looking at their salary column and summing it up. This is that number. And this is taking the simple average of all the non-missing records in the column salary. Again, both of these functions only work with non-missing data. So in my classwork.records table, if I see, I think there's a numeric field in that. Yes, there's a value field and that has some missing, as you can see. So if I go to this table and I say select sum of value, I can ignore writing as here. So I can say sum value from classwork.records. Let me see if this works or not. In a lot of DBMS, it doesn't. Okay, it works. So what I did here, first see that this as is actually optional. If I just write the computation followed by the alias, I can also ignore writing that as. Okay. So here it looked at the column value in this table and took a sum of all the non-missing values. If you go back to the table and see all the entries in it. So go back to the table. So see, these are the entries. If you sum up all of these numbers, it will come out to be 165. So it took this null as 0 and actually missing. It ignores this records and simply sums them up. So if I take an average now of these numbers, it will take an average of all the non-missing values. That means it is going to ignore this entry fully. It won't take it as 0. It will ignore it and take the simple average of all the other 9 non-missing entries in the column value. Okay. If you can give it a try and just compute it by hand also and see, it will exactly be that. So remember, if a particular field has missing values, SQL ignores that and simply computes the aggregate functions on top of the non-missing values. Okay. The last one is min and max here. So in this table, in the same table, if I say min of value as min value, max of value as max value from classwork dot records, and I run this. See, the min value is 15, max value is 25, which is exactly what we had put in this table. If you go back to the table, now see, it ignores this null. It does not take it as a 0 or missing or anything. It ignores this because had it not ignored it, null means what? Null means a 0, then it would have picked min value as 0. But if this field is going to be missing, SQL ignores it. Out of all of the non-missing entries, 15 is the minimum value and 25 is the maximum value, which is exactly what we get here. Is there anything else in this? So here they're talking about how do you combine multiple things, which we have spoken about. We have 5 minutes, so I will introduce group by. All right. Now, group by clause groups rows that have same values in specified column into summary rows. Okay. What does that mean? So up till this point, all the aggregate functions which we looked at, all of these aggregate functions, these are working on the entire table at a time. See, this is working on the entire employee table. So for the entire employee table, it is looking at the column salary. What if I want to create the sum of salary by city now? So let's say for that table, I want to find the sum of salary separately when city takes the value New York versus when city takes the value Chicago versus Houston versus Los Angeles. In that case, I will have to use that column name city somewhere. Then you use the clause group by with aggregate functions. So group by. So I say select city followed by sum of salary as city salary from classwork.employee group by city. So up till this point, this part we understand. Now, because we want to break up this sum of salary by city, I have to include that field name here. And then I have to mention group by that field name. If I run this query now, see, now that entire sum of sales is broken up by city. So this means what? This means first it created a filter on city. So first it implicitly filtered out those records where city takes the value Chicago. For all of those records, it created a sum on the salary field and gave you the output. Then it went to the next city, filtered out records where city takes value Houston, looked at the salary column and summed up all the values. Similarly for other two. Okay. We'll look at this in greater detail. I just remembered, I think there is 2 more questions which I had. So actually 3. So we'll solve a couple and I'll give you the rest. First question number 6. Find this. Okay. I wanted to say, what is the total number of records in the table employee? Are there any missing rows in ID column? Is ID the unique column in the table? Okay. Now, this question will solve using count function and we'll combine it with 2 things. First is, how many records are there in the table? Now here we want to find the total number of records. So we will use count star. Second is there any missing rows in ID column? How can we find missing rows? If you remember this part that we did. If you go back to this one. Here what we did, we looked at count of ID. Sorry, we looked at this one first. So if we looked at count star. Count star is going to give me the total number of records in the table. Count ID is going to give me the total non-missing number of records in the column ID. If the output of this and this is same, that means the number of non-missing entries in ID is exactly equal to the number of records in the table. Alternatively, that means that there is no missing information in the column ID. Correct? So to answer this, we have to compare the output of this and this together. Third is ID the unique column in the table? Now, how do we check unique column? We use distinct. So in this, if I say count distinct ID and we look at the output of that, if that is equal to the total number of records for ID, what does that mean? Count distinct is giving me the unique number of records for ID column. And count ID is giving me the number of non-missing entries for ID column. So if the number of entries in ID is equal to the number of unique ID entries, that means ID is my unique column. Give it a try and see. Code this question up into 3 parts and tell me if what will be the output of all of this. I'm going to paste this question for you guys here. Where is this thing? Chat window. Give it a try and tell me. This question and this question, right? I'll keep the solution of both of them ready. Question number Which question is this? Question number 3 and question number 6 I've given you. Okay. Question number 7. How many employees were hired? Okay, these two questions I'm going to give you as well. I'm not going to explain how do you solve it. We've already looked at similar questions before. So give it a try. And then I will give you the solution for this in the next class. Okay. So question number 3, 6, 7, and 8. These 4 questions I've given you guys. Give it a try and let me know how that works out in the next class. And in the next class, we are going to talk about in greater detail about group by and having, and then we'll move on to the other topics as well. Okay, that's about it, guys. Thank you so much. Please keep practicing. And I think there is also another set of questions which is available to you guys. I think it's called Innovit class question set. It has the question and solution. It has all topics. So maybe look at those questions which pertain to the topics we've covered till now. You can solve those also. And for each class, I will give you my set of questions as well. Some will solve in the class, some I'll give you as assignments, so you can give it a try. And if you're getting stuck anywhere, let me know. We'll revisit those topics. Okay, thank you so much. Good session. I'll speak to you guys on Saturday. Thank you. Bye-bye.